If you think of a leader, a good leader, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Perfect. So welcome back to Elevate with Liana Marisha, the space where we rise together by hearing stories that stir us to grow, to shift, and to lead with soul. Today, we are so honored to sit with a woman who's not only leading in Thailand's fast evolving fintech space, but doing it at her own terms, with heart, with depth, and with unmistakable authenticity.
Female entrepreneurs across Southeast Asia pulled in about $1.4 billion last year, roughly a fifth of all private capital raised in 2023. That's a bold figure. But behind the headlines are the lived stories of vision, perseverance, and purpose-driven power. And today we're sitting with one of the women shaping that reality right here in Thailand.
Rasmegh, or Megha, is the co-founder and the Managing Director of DeeMoney. Her leadership journey spans education, technology, and now cross-border finance. But her true superpower? The way she integrates ambition with inner alignment.
We've been so looking forward to sitting down with Megha today. We know how busy you are and are deeply appreciative of your time with us, for us today. Dear Megha, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much. It is my honor to be here with the both of you, so dynamic and as inspiring as you both are. So thank you for having me here.
At this year's Canadian Chamber of Commerce event on women in leadership in Bangkok, where I had the infinite joy of serving as moderator, one of the powerful messages you shared with us, Megha, was that we can rewrite the stories we were handed, even the one that told us that we didn't belong. Walk us through what that means for you, Megha.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't supposed to be where I am today. It was very clear to me growing up that the ultimate ambition and the pinnacle of my journey was to be a good wife, a good daughter-in-law, and a good mother. And so if I had any ambition outside of that, it had to be, whatever I chose to do had to be compatible with those roles first. So, I geared myself. I started my journey started in early childhood education, because that ticked all three boxes. I could run businesses that my children could come to. The hours were flexible. I could go home in time before my husband was home, etc. And that's how I started. But it was a series of unexpected opportunities and just saying yes to things that terrified me that have led me to where I am today. And that is being in the technology and finance world. And I never expected that I could do this, but here I am. And here we are leading the country's largest non-bank cross-border payments. And it was, I think, a journey of just following the opportunities that came in and just step by step, going where I never thought I could go.
Wow, extraordinary, Megha. Just so inspiring just to hear it coming from you here. And you've achieved so much on this journey, we know, because as you're saying, it's been your growth, it's been going beyond what you thought was possible. And reclaiming that journey, right? Your own narrative. So if we would ask you, what was one accomplishment that you are most proud of?
Well, I think, it's so hard to pinpoint one, right? So if I may have the privilege of, just sharing a few different stories here. I think the first thing I'm very proud of is making room for myself in this industry and in this corporate world. because I came from a very different world, a world I was very comfortable with, early childhood education. I was very at ease there. And when I moved into, the fintech industry, it was very clear to me that it was a men's only space. So here I was, female co-founder, the only woman in the room a lot of the times. And I had a lot of cultural programming that said that a woman's place in a room full of men is to serve. So it was that cultural, just sort of fighting my programming, and a lot of mental sort of chatter and noise about how should I show up, and that constant self-editing. Was I too loud? Was I too aggressive when I said that? Should I have been a little bit softer, or just not knowing how to place myself, just because it wasn't natural to me, and I was trying to learn a new way of being in an environment that, again, was not natural to me. So I modeled myself on my husband, who is my co-founder, and for me, one of the best examples of healthy, balanced leadership.
Wow.
And that was great, because he gave me a very clear picture of what clear, decisive leadership could look like. But it also meant that it was like a pendulum. I swung from one end to the other, and that process, again, was not natural. And I went through a lot of second guessing, self-doubt. And I think what I'm most proud of is coming back into the center and realizing that leadership is not imitation. It's integration. It's taking the parts that you aspire to be and integrating that within yourself in a way that feels natural to you. But it's taken me years to get there. And I think it's still a work in progress, because the cultural programming is so deep. So that's one thing I'm very proud of. Oh, and along the way, what I've realized is, and as we all know, like, the corporate world is very masculine in terms of the lens that we use to see and validate our performance, the framework in which we justify our existence. It's very masculine. It's very push, push, push. If you're not, if you're not earning this, or if you're not achieving this, then you're not worth it. Or, what's your value if you're not achieving XYZ, right? So that kind of ambition as a woman doesn't feel as natural, in the sense that it's wonderful. It's a great framework to have, but I think it doesn't honor the cyclical nature that is the feminine. I don't feel like pushing every day. I don't wake up feeling like I have that energy every single day to do it. So how do I honor what feels real to me in a system that actually wasn't designed for me?
Right? It is so special to hear you say these things that many of us professional women have encountered and just haven't been able to put words on. Megha, the way you express it is powerful, because it's something most of us have felt. I've been working in the water policy space with rooms full of engineers, hence most of the men, right? And so to hear you express it in that way, where the reality is that, as you say, how do you say it? Authentic leadership isn't about imitation; it's about integration. And how do you espouse that feminine power and leadership and sense of being in these rooms that are mostly masculine dominated, so energy dominated? So can you tell us how you did that, like practical things of how that looks like for you on a daily basis, and in terms of your leadership of that amazing company that you've built with your husband?
Yeah, well, I think fundamentally, if you think of a leader, a good leader, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, Marisha? What's the first image?
The first image is a good leader is someone who's inspiring, someone that I want to follow, who has vision.
Right. I mean, absolutely. And if I were to put a visual to that, let's say I was talking to my 20-year-old self and I was putting a visual to that, it would be a man in a suit, leading the way, knows everything, has the answers to it all. And I think one of the, I mean, maybe one of the bravest things that I could have done in a meeting room is to say, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Yes, I am the leader. Yes, I am the co-founder of this company, but I don't know. So help me learn, right? And I think that there's no room in a very traditional masculine framework. There's no room for saying that because a leader needs to know everything. But that was unrealistic, and I felt that was putting a lot of burden on myself. And it got to a point where I said, if I'm the smartest person in the room, then we're only going to get so far, right? Because there's only, I mean, I don't come from this industry. I'm learning as we go. And I think it's that curiosity that really helped us to reach where we got. But being open, I think, is the most important thing that I could have done, was listening to other people's ideas, vetting it, doing the research, and just being open, being curious and saying, I don't know. What do you think? Right? Which is so not usual, because you're sitting at the head of the table. Everyone's looking to you and they're saying, well, tell us what to do. And I think that kind of leadership can only get you so far.
Oh, beautiful. Right? We love the authenticity again. I think this is something that's very close to you too, right? Showing up authentically, where you're not holding this mask of, I know it all.
Yes.
Coming in and going, okay, I want more. I want to learn more. Show me, and how I can receive from others. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's not that I didn't want to know it all. Of course, we come in saying we want to be that leader, we want to know it all, but that took its toll. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't sustainable for me. And I realized that if I wasn't going to be open and honest and perhaps even vulnerable in sharing that, perhaps I need to hear from you, or what do you think about this, and share that with me, then I would have only gotten so far. And the team, we would not have been able to come up with the solutions and the ideas that we did. So, and I really believe that when anyone opens up that space, we all transform from being just a boss and employees to co-creators of a solution. And we start working and building on that together, and the sense of ownership and accountability that seeps down into the team is something that you can't teach or you can't explain. It's something that has to be experienced, and you actually see how it transforms everyone. Because anyone given a platform or an opportunity by someone they respect or admire, they usually rise to the occasion. So it was, as much as it was about me and my leadership, it was also about, helping my team rise and elevating them to meeting me in that co-creation, in that space of creativity.
I love it. Of course, the word elevate resonates.
Yes.
with us deeply.
That was not intentional, but it worked.
It's so true. I mean, and this is the whole purpose of what we're doing with this podcast, isn't it, Liana? The elevating of because it really is, if the tide rises, it's all boat that rises, right? So it's really, and it's about how to lead in that way that will help others, not just ourselves. It's to help the others around us. And it's funny, also what you say mirrors so much in what it is to be a mother, I find, right? Megha, I mean, my son is 21 years old, and I know your children are about the same age. And so I have felt the whole way through, like, what do I know? Why am I the one who's trying to teach something when I'm still
Absolutely.
really truly trying to figure out so much out still, right?
Absolutely, Marisha. I really believe that I am a good leader because of what I've learned with my children. And I think being a mom first really helps me bring those principles into the workplace, because with my kids, it's always, I mean, my son is 19, my daughter's 16, and I have a 10-year-old. And it's always, okay, this is new to me. So tell me, let's work on this together. So just that openness, that vulnerability, and being able to say that, yeah, I am the parent, but that doesn't mean I always know what I'm doing. So let's try to figure this out together. Right. So I had very good practice with them. I could bring that to the boardroom.
I know it really, like, if nothing else, will humble you the way parenthood does, right?
Absolutely.
Well, and it's just so beautiful to see how, as you were speaking, it's about a team effort.
Yes.
We are all coming together to create something special, and everyone has got their own position. I love the analogy, as I say, instruments like an orchestra.
Yes.
Individual instruments can be as beautiful when they play solo, but when they come together and they are in harmony, well, then you do have a symphony, and that brings it to another level. But it takes a lot of leadership, personal leadership, and also with the team. Beautiful. It's just so inspiring, Megha. Thank you. There's another topic that we've had the opportunity to hear you mention, and that's imposter syndrome. And let's touch a bit on that. It's about something that, a lot of people have that issue, and you offer a very powerful reframe to what this actually is. And that is not that it's not a flaw, but it's a signal that's telling you something as you're navigating through spaces where you were never meant to be in the first place. And that's very profound. So share with us, someone who's going through that, how do they begin to move and shift from that space?
I think we are pushed into a lot of narratives that we think that it should be this way. And if I don't fit that, then there's something wrong with me. We are so good at internalizing our flaws and never perhaps pausing to think, maybe there's something wrong with the system and it's not me, right? So when I was looking into, I definitely suffered from imposter syndrome for a long time. As I was saying, that pendulum that was swinging, because I modeled myself and my husband, because I thought that was what would make me worthy of the position I had in the boardroom, the head of the table. And I was performing, I was putting on an act, because I really thought that that's what I had to do. And I burnt out very quickly. I wasn't happy. I would go home and I wasn't healthy, and my kids would suffer. My husband was suffering because I wasn't my best self, and I realized that this isn't sustainable, and this is not how I want to live, nor do I want to lead my own life and my company in this way. So when I went in to read, and I think another funny point is, I think I felt that I had to have imposter syndrome, because a lot of women are told that if you don't have imposter syndrome as well, then you're not doing it right. Mm-hmm. There's this, it's very subliminal, right? Like, it's like, we just took it for granted, or I just took it for granted that I would suffer from imposter syndrome, because every other woman in the corporate world at some point in their lives have. And that got me thinking and really questioning why. Why is this the way it has to be? And I read and I came across the most incredible story, which blew my mind, and it was called Bicycle Face.
Okay. Bicycle what?
Bicycle Face. Okay, so in the 1800s, when bicycles became, the newer, the more cosmopolitan mode of transportation, it was only men who were using it. right? As women started using the bicycles, they were able to get to places that they had probably never gone before. They were meeting, new opportunities opened up, a whole new life opened up for women. And I think the patriarchy panicked. And so they came up with this diagnosis to try to deter women from using the bicycles. But more than that, it was more about what the bicycles represented, which was freedom, opportunities. So they came up with a diagnosis called bicycle face, which is what happens when the wind hits your face, and it's supposed to make you less beautiful and really trying to appeal to the Victorian standards of beauty and vanity, to deter women from being more mobile, enjoying more freedom. And that phenomena, we don't have bicycle face anymore, but it's just been renamed, right? Imposter syndrome, but the manipulation is still there. And I recognize my position of privilege. I am in a position to break these patterns. Can't do it for the whole world, but I can do it for my company. I can do it for my daughters. I can do it for the women who interface with me, right? And if I say, you know what? I'm going to show up as myself. However vulnerable that may be, however radical that may seem to the company, however soft and nurturing that I feel on that particular day, I'm going to show up in that, and let's see what happens. And what was incredible to me is when I made space for myself, I laughed more, my team laughed more, we were happier, and it just became this sort of magnetic frequency where a lot more women joined our team. Even the leadership team, we had 40% growth in female representation in my leadership team without putting out a mandate.
Wow.
And I just believe that when you anchor in to a particular frequency and you're aligned with that and you're authentic, it just magnetizes. You don't have to chase certain metrics. You don't have to chase certain outcomes. They just come, they flow.
Oh, beautiful. And we can share openly, Megha. It makes our hearts sing, because Marisha and I, since we've started this project, it's a dream. It came together because of our deep desire to be hearing more of these stories. Because we know, we have conversations we with friends at the table, and we go, oh my God, your story is so powerful, it needs to be magnified. Why? Because we need these stories. It is, as you're saying, taking responsibility to do it in your home, in your company, which is not small like the company, and so on, in a country, but leading a way or showing a way that it is possible. And the results that you've brought home show that it is possible. So thank you.
Absolutely. Liana, if I can share a little bit more, I think I've been such a big advocate of integrating femininity into this masculine world that I was really put to the test last year. And I've just sort of reflected on this. And, so late last year, we went through a period where we weren't offering the kind of service that we were proud of. Like, we were on multiple levels, the product, like you said, the instruments might look and sound beautiful on their own, but when they were coming together, it wasn't working. There were just so many different factors that just resulted in a subpar product. And in a masculine framework, you would still push. You would still keep going with that and trying to fix it while things weren't going well. It's like renovating your house while living in it, and it's just messy for everyone. So the most radical and courageous decision that we could have taken was to pause. Mm-hmm. And that's integrating the feminine energy, right? Because that's where it's the spaces between, right? We're so scared of that. And the masculine framework or the corporate world doesn't allow for pauses. We paused, we decided to regroup, and in that space, just look at everything and see, figure this out and figure out how we could optimize the service, the product. But in the meanwhile, everyone got time to rest. Everyone got time to recharge. And I think that's what it is, right? Like, masculine growth is very linear. Mm-hmm. But when you bring the feminine in, it creates space for exponential growth because it's cyclical. It allows for breakdowns. It allows for those pauses, and that's where the quantum leaps can come out. And I'm thrilled to say that that pause has worked in our favor, because now we've resumed, and that orchestra is just, the symphony is just beautiful. Everything's just come together beautifully. Customers are happy, all our stakeholders are happy. And we all know it was far better than we probably would have been able to, it's a much better outcome than we could have achieved had we kept pushing.
This is oh, we will do everything to broadcast just that.
I know. I'm sitting here thinking, I want the whole world to hear this.
It was scary. I'm not going to lie, because it is so, what's that word? It's so counterintuitive, right? It is so contrary to what is the norm. But doing what felt right to us and honoring that and pausing and regrouping and just listening to ourselves and understanding that there are flows and there are ebbs, and we need to honor that.
Oh,
and
precious, Megha. I'm curious. How do you transmit this to your children? You have a boy, and you have two beautiful daughters. And how do you transmit this wisdom to them?
Well, I'm very lucky. My children actually love hearing me speak, which is, my kids will sit there and they'll be like, okay, tell us what happened today at work, or tell us how you did this. And I think it's just because it started off as mom guilt. When I started working and I'd get home a bit late, and there was so much guilt that I'd be home late that I would overshare. So I've just planted those seeds in them that, that makes them want to hear me, and I guess just sharing my stories. But it's sharing, but it's also seeing it in action. Like, I'm very open with them about everything that we go through on a day-to-day basis, and including the struggles. And they see the choices I make. They see how important meditation or being in my inner world is to me, and that's where I get my strength from, and that's how I draw upon it and bring it to my external world. And so I think just seeing all of that, they're just very curious, and it just makes them want to be open to learn. And I'm constantly oversharing.
Beautiful. Yeah. Megha, if there was one tip that you would offer to the listeners that are here today, how can they start to lead and receive with purpose without that guilt? What would one tip be for them to go, okay, I'm done with this, I'm going to start today?
So the trick I use, because I also, the pendulum, it's normal for all of us. We're constantly swinging between states. So the one state that I find that is neutral and helps me regroup and have perspective as to where I want to go is just getting into a state of gratitude. It's breaking that cycle, right? It's that confusion, that loss, and then you just get lost up in the mental state. Yeah. The gratitude, in my experience, gratitude is not a mental concept. It's a feeling. It's experiential. It's immersive. So if I need to get out of my head, I just get into gratitude, even if it's thinking about one thing that's made me so grateful, or a memory, or some joy, just getting into that. And I find getting into that baseline helps, it's a phenomenal launch pad for whatever else has to follow.
Rocket ship, Megha. It's just so precious, everything you're giving to us. Thank you, Megha. Let's now go to rapid fire questions. One answer, the first thing that comes to mind, Megha. Okay. A ritual that grounds you. You mentioned it, you alluded to it, but the ritual that grounds you every day.
4:30 a.m. meditations. I can't live without them.
Wow. A book or a quote that has changed your life?
A quote by Dr. Jaya John that says, "Have you come here to be liked or have you come here to be life?
Oh.
And that just shifted everything for me.
Okay.
Woo, difficult to keep on. Wow. Wow. One object in your home that tells your story, Megha.
So I recently purchased this beautiful floor lamp. It's a person holding these light bulbs in an arch, and he's just looking up. And I have it in a very prominent position in my home because every time I look at that, for me, it just spells out euphoria, bliss, and that's just the energy I want to bring into my everyday. So that's my favorite object at home right now.
Beautiful. And that's one of the highest frequencies, right? When you are in that space of bliss and joy. Oh, beautiful. Okay. As you know, Elevate is all about feel well, think deep, and live wide. So what does living wide mean to Megha?
Living wide means for me going in actually as deep as I can, drawing in depth and without expectation, just letting it flow. And seeing how far and wide it goes. Like I have no expectation to the outcome. The only thing that I am attached to, perhaps, is how deep I can go within. And I find that the deeper I stay and that stillness that I immerse myself within, it just manifests very unexpectedly and beautifully in my reality.
It's a yummy place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's the best.
Places to be, relate to that. So Megha, what can we say? Just thank you so, so much, darling. Your story reminds us that we don't have to play with the old rules, that leadership isn't just about pushing harder, but about staying truer. That's putting ourselves first, how we show up in the world, and that you can lead with wholeness and not only from a space of hustle.
Megha, thank you so much. You give so much to the world and to us today. I'm just beyond words grateful. Thank you.
Honestly, it's my privilege to be in the company of, Liana, Marisha. You are both so inspiring to me, and your energy is so contagious. And I love what you're doing. Elevate. There can't be a better mission than that. So thank you for having me here.
Oh. And to you watching, if you felt something shift in you today, which I can't believe it wouldn't, if a line, a lesson, or even a pause struck a chord, share this episode. Let others hear what's possible when we lead from within. You can follow Megha and explore her work through DeeMoney and LinkedIn. We'll leave the links alongside this episode. And she's one of the voices shaping our digital future while anchoring it in wisdom that transcends tech. So you want to be following Megha.
Absolutely. And what now? Subscribe, comment, share, and just keep this conversation going to empower and help as many possible to elevate. Until the next time, feel well, think deep, and live well.